For me, it was like I knew what it was. I heard it over and over again, but I didn't really want to know anything about it. I could just hope that it was just working on its own and I did everything right. And to me, in working with you, Crystal, and listening to you guys, it's like from the customer's perspective, like a treasure map. So if you're on Google and it just little crumbs or little X marks the spot to lead you to exactly what you're looking for, how I'm able to help a potential customer find exactly what they're looking for through SEO and the targeted keywords and all of that.
Well, hello, and welcome to season 2 of the Simple and Smart SEO Show,
the podcast for solopreneurs, service providers, and e-commerce sellers who want to learn the basics of SEO in all the places it shows up.
I'm Crystal Waddell. I help Shopify store owners go from feeling like an SEO zero to your very own SEO hero in just one day using AI, UX, and other tech ninja moves.
And I'm Brittany Herzberg, SEO and case study copywriter, helping service providers increase sales without being on 24/7, using the power of SEO, story, and social proof.
We're just a couple of business besties who love learning and sharing what we've learned as we show you how
simple
and smart
SEO can be. So what are we waiting for? Let's jump in.
I'm so excited today, guys. We have my friend Whitney Surane, who is a fellow Etsy seller and Shopify seller and just an all-around amazing person. And we are going to be talking about SEO and podcasting and Shopify and all those things today. So welcome to the show, Whitney, and hello, Brittany.
Hi, welcome. Hi, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here. And I love hearing about how people's businesses start. And I saw that you said that you had a happy accident after a job change. And so I was wondering if you could just share with us a little bit about that.
Sure. I'm a mom of 5, but in 2012, I had just had my 4th, a little girl. And while I was pregnant, I was laid off. I worked in real estate for 14 years. And after my daughter was born, I'm originally from California, so my mom would come and visit, and we decided to try our hand at quilting, which my mom sewed, I sewed, my grandmother did, but we never quilted. And we found a pattern on Pinterest, and it was like the worst thing ever. We still laugh at it, but it made like a tiny little quilt to cover my infant's the car seat because Chicago winters and cold. And so after we made that, people would, where did you get that? Did you make it? Oh, you should start an Etsy shop. And so I did. I always wanted to be like a stay-at-home mom. I don't think I really thought about working for myself too seriously. I didn't think I could do that, but yeah, 11 years and here we are. So super exciting.
Wow.
That was really a gift.
That's really cool. I know I saw something on your forum that I was very curious about, and it also ties in with what you just said. You have a fruitcake that's been in your freezer for how long?
Over 25 years. I don't remember exactly the number, but one of my grandmothers would make traditional fruitcakes every Christmas. Everyone hated them except for me, and I would help her make them and she'd decorate them on top with the dried fruit and pecans. But she also, her house smelled like mothballs. She smelled like mothballs. It was like in everything. So even when I would eat the fruitcake, it was like, okay, mothballs. But it was the last that she made, and I just saved it. My kids are like, what's that meatloaf in the freezer? But it's the fruitcake, and I will never get rid of it because it's the last thing that she made for me. But it ties back into my business, and we're all about keepsakes and cherishing the memories that you make. And that the foundation is the fruitcake for everything that we do today. So
That is so sweet.
So your main products are like linen play crowns or linen birthday crowns and like tooth fairy pillows and those types of keepsakes for kids, right? What made you say, I want to have a Shopify store in addition to my Etsy shop?
the first year I participated in 27 different local markets. And I just jumped right in because I didn't ever want to work outside the home again. I really wanted to continue to be with my kids. So I evolved into mostly baby bedding on Etsy. And I think it was in 2015 that I decided to open a Shopify. And it's with Etsy, you go through these periods where, you know, I maybe I'm going to leave Etsy and I'm just going to sell on my own website, but no, I'll keep Etsy. And I started with Shopify because it was convenient and seemed easy, and it really was. And I've been there ever since. And while our product collection has evolved, I just love Shopify. And Etsy's kind of a set it and forget it thing. So it's nice.
I love that. So I wonder, how did you two meet? So you had your shops, but how did you two start
Yeah.
working together?
Nicole with Art to the Extreme. She actually also lives in Indiana. But we were chatting just about, she's amazing with doing all of her own PR and getting just press like without paying a single dime for it.
And she's coming on the podcast too.
She's awesome. We just spent about a week together at Alt Summit. But so we talked a lot about SEO, and she was in that transition from Etsy to her own website. She's amazing on Etsy. She teaches. But so we were just talking about SEO, and she mentioned you guys and Crystal helping her out. And so then I was like, I'm all about podcasts. I'm like, let me start listening. And so I did and reached out, and now I subscribe to the shorts, and I tell everybody about you guys. So that's it. Just those, it's like all virtual. You just meet each other and
Yeah,
yeah.
that's so sweet.
Can you just share a few takeaways about what you've learned about Shopify SEO through that time together, and like maybe some things maybe you didn't know, but now you know or understand better and think it might be beneficial to someone else to hear it?
For me, it was like I knew what it was. I heard it over and over again, but I didn't really want to know anything about it. I could just hope that it was just working on its own and I did everything right. And to me, in working with you, Crystal, and listening to you guys, it's like from the customer's perspective, like a treasure map. So if you're on Google and it just little crumbs or little X marks the spot to lead you to exactly what you're looking for. Thinking about it in more of a big picture way, how I'm able to help a potential customer find exactly what they're looking for through SEO and the targeted keywords and all of that. And then learning all the things with Surfer and Jasper and all of those things. Again, Uber suggests that I did not want to know about, but the more that I listen to you guys and the more that I work with Crystal, it's like a puzzle and it's like a fun challenge too. Cause when I like on Surfer, when I see like that score go up, if I'm like writing a blog post, then it's, I don't know, I'm at Chuck E. Cheese or something.
Yes. It's the adult arcade. Oh my gosh. I never thought about it like that. So I think I took your question, B. I didn't mean to.
No, you're
But
good.
that was a great definition of what SEO means to you. So I think that's really fantastic.
Exactly. You can tell she listens because she just worked in her definition there.
Yeah, I like it. So one other question I have though, like in terms of the actual tactical part of SEO, is there anything that you now know about like where SEO goes in Shopify that you didn't before?
Yes, like all the things, like all the meta descriptions and even just product titles and adding in the like little snippets of customer testimonials in there and how that looks and where to place the keywords and not the same keywords, but a variation and certainly not the stuffing. No turkeys here, but yeah, it's like just full circle. It's okay. I never paid attention to meta descriptions. So it's whatever that looks like, it's fine. But really how valuable that is. And also recently listening to one of your podcasts about not using like link pop or link tree. Instead, considering how valuable every space is in your Instagram profile and how you should use keywords there. It's just like a full picture kind of thing that I was like, I never really thought too much about before. It was, this is what we do. Okay, I'll put in some information and go from there. But it certainly doesn't get you results that you want because otherwise you're just hoping that someone will randomly find you. And I used to think if I just create this website and use a great theme and there are some products that people will find me, and it's not the case. And when I look at like most recent sales, another suggestion I think from you guys, they weren't really from social as much as I thought they were. It was more searching from Google. And that's just valuable information that, again, I don't want to know about it. Had my blinders on.
Yeah. So on that note with your sales, I'm so curious, like what wins have you had since working with Crystal and learning about SEO and implementing some of the stuff, whether it's monetary or emotions, like where are you at now with SEO?
Still certainly evolving. And I inundate Crystal with questions all the time. And she's so gracious with her thoughts and her time and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think being able to serve the customer in a better way, even like anticipating what they might be, what their needs might be, and not just from a product standpoint, from content and blogs and how can yes, I have this product here, but here's how you could use it. Here's why you might want to use it. And then backlinks and all of those things. So I think it's just providing the customer a better experience overall, or potential customer, that eventually it all goes back to serving before selling and just learning how to do it in a better way.
Yeah. Yeah. This is good.
Yeah. And what she's talking about is she's diving into content and UX, like user experience, which is just so critical. And it's going to be that much more critical in the future for sure. Let's go back to content, because that's really one of the main things that we wanted to talk about today, was like creating content that benefits our audience, and particularly in the form of a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So let's jump into that. What are you thinking now in terms of content? Like, how did you get to this idea of creating a podcast?
From you guys.
I love it.
Figuring out how to reach and serve your customer where they're at. And I listen to podcasts, not just business focused, but podcasts of all types. And when I think about Madly Wish and what our products are used for, if you think of birthday crowns or tooth fairy pillows and celebrating those moments, I can certainly create blog posts about that, but also it's something that I can talk about and maybe serve our community that way. Like, how are you creating that first birthday party? Or how do you celebrate the visit from a tooth fairy? And then being able to help other small businesses or support other women in general, how we could include other small businesses who maybe make products that would also be valuable to our customer. So talking to those business owners, and then also party planners or moms who are really amazing at creating magical experiences that don't include huge party rentals and bounce houses, like serving because I'm not that kind. I'm not a Pinterest mom. I could not ever do all of that. But so providing different ways to celebrate the moments that you love in thoughtful ways, and learning from other small businesses. And sometimes for me, you can listen to a podcast with whatever you're doing, no matter what. So I appreciate if I'm making dinner and listening to something, and it's a little easier, I think, than always reading a blog.
Yeah. So what you've got this time, like, what is it that you might be curious about when it comes to running a podcast? Is there anything that you're like, I wish I could ask this?
I don't know how you even get started. I'd like to know how to start that, because I have a creative consultant that works with me, and she's in another state. So how do you start a podcast together, and you're working in different locations, and what your method is? Do you plan out your podcast like a month in advance, or, how much time elapses between this and then actually sharing the podcast on Apple or that kind of thing?
Oh, there's so many good different roads we could take.
Okay, I have an idea. Let's just start right now with our setup. Okay, what are the basic things that you need to actually physically be able to start a podcast? Lots of different accessories that you can get. Just starting with a computer is all you need, because there's so many different tools available online. Now, we do have podcast mics. We both got Blue Ice snowballs
From Yeti, I think.
Yeah, and you can't really see it, but I've got a Dragon Pad pop filter over the mic, and that helps when you have like hard syllables like B's and P's, and I drag out my S's, and so it helps with cleaning up like I don't even know, what are those even called?
I don't know, but it like buffers the harsher sounds.
I had a friend who was a speech pathologist, and she would know what that was called, but there's probably a specific name for it. But yeah, it just really cleans up how your sound comes out. But we recently found out something, what that was.
You're going to ask me? I want to say it's called I don't remember if this is the one we want or that we don't want, but dynamic condenser microphone. I'm actually going to look it up because we had a guest on recently.
Yeah. And by the time this podcast comes out, Alex Miner, his episode will be out as well. So that's a good episode to go back and listen to, because he's talking about video, and we talked about equipment. A lot of the microphone type equipment is the same, whether you're doing a video show or a podcast. So he's got some recommendations in there for specific products.
Yeah, and dynamic mic is the one that you want. So we have, I think, a condenser mic, which are the popular ones. Pretty much anything with Yeti, if you hear someone talk about a microphone, it's more than likely going to be a condenser mic. So there are affordable dynamic mics. And I think Crystal and I might even consider looking into those this year, maybe. But again, don't let the technology hold you
hinder
up.
you. Yeah. Even if that's, oh my gosh, overwhelming, and not necessarily to you, Whitney, but anybody listening, just back it up and use your computer. Use your computer. So physically, I think that's the extent of.
Oh, having headphones is always helpful because I think it does something for sound. So at least have some, you don't have to have the fancy headphones. I just have these from the tether cord still that you get when you get your iPhone. So just like a cheap set of headphones is totally fine. And then even just trying to find a quiet-ish corner. I actually have a friend, Shannon, who started her podcast in her closet to help cut down on the noise. I don't think she had one of those like filters for her podcast mic. And yeah, just definitely don't let the technology or the things or the accessories hold you back.
Okay. Because you often see, here's my soundproof set.
Yes.
Amazing microphone. And it's not really needed.
Yeah. And I have a great office upstairs that's carpeted. And my father-in-law built me this amazing wall with my logo as a backdrop. But my dog goes nuts if I go upstairs, and she'll start ripping up all of the papers that are up there. So I'm downstairs in a big open room. In those situations, a mic and some post-production is going to help a lot, because obviously I don't have anything trapping the sound here.
And I bounce around to I'm living out of Airbnbs right now while my boyfriend and I house hunt. So I don't know what I'm going to end up in, but I'm usually just like that corner. I'm going to pick that one.
So you've always used Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've always used Zoom, but there are definitely better alternatives to Zoom. If you have the free version, what are you capped at 45 minutes or
45.
something?
Yes.
Yeah. And Zoom sometimes, like I've noticed in post-production, it's hard for me to get rid of this. And I can hear it in our podcast. We'll have these weird clicks every once in a while, and like a weird, just a sound. And there's something about the way that Zoom records that you get that. So there's actually podcast recording studio type programs that you can use. I think Hello Audio might have something. I don't know, but
there's one called Riverside. I know that our friend Leah likes that one.
Yeah. So there's Riverside, and then there's more like that. But if you're going bare bones of just trying to start out and start up, Zoom has worked fine for us. Google is another option. And one thing I really like about Google is that it keeps things within the ecosystem.
We should switch.
Yeah, especially with your love of Google Docs and everything. And then it automatically records and goes to a folder. But the process with Zoom is that you have to record it and then either download it to your computer, or you're recording it to the cloud. You have to let it process and then download it to your computer and then import it into whatever software you're using for post-production. So there's lots of recording and then downloading and that type of thing.
Those little steps.
Yeah, I bet Riverside or something that's created specifically for podcasts helps you eliminate some of those little things.
So is there a lot generally that you're doing in post-production? And also, I've never noticed the clicks before as a listener.
No, yeah, so good. Now you will. Now you'll be aware of it. I've tried to
everyone else.
I've had a podcast before, so I knew some of the tools that you can use to clean things up. So I enjoy doing that. We've had a podcast editor that we got on Fiverr. He's probably listening right now. So hey, Arslan, I had some free time and I enjoy doing it. And it also helps when you have great tools, which I'll talk about in just a minute. There's different ways you can do it. You can record the podcast and then give the editor the link and let them combine it for you. And that will run you anywhere from $25 to $75 an episode, depending on who you're using.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about the planning? Do you guys try to plan things out a month in advance and figure out the topics that you are interested in and then search for the guest? Or or is it just, we'll just see what comes our way?
Should I take this one?
Yeah, take it.
We thought about planning. And for me, I am always someone that you hear about like batching content, like even if it's like an Instagram reel, and I'm like, yeah, I can do this. Every single time I try, I'm like, this is not my jam. And again, even with the podcast, I was like, should we have some kind of like, this is our theme for this month. This is our theme for this quarter. And we talked about it and we just like rolling with what comes in. With the guests, frankly, it's been like, I joke about this, but truly, it's like, I have this client, I have this mentor, I have this friend, I have this person. Most of the time it's, hey, you want to meet Crystal? Oh, and do you want to record something and show your smarts online? And I've had a blast doing that. That's all like my perspective, but it's been so fun, really just getting to showcase the people in my life. And like going back to post-production just for a hot second, if Crystal didn't know the tech stuff that she knew, if she hadn't had a podcast before us, like this one, I that was a huge selling point. I was like, maybe we could do this podcast idea. I only want to do it with Crystal because I knew that she knew the steps. I knew that she knew the stuff. I knew that she loves learning. She's really great at all this stuff. I'm going to make her cry. This is wonderful. She's going to forget her question. But truly, there's no one else that I would have wanted to do this with. It's been a blast. But yeah, no, to answer your question, no, we don't really have a structure. It's just what's going on. Sometimes there will be a hot topic like ChatGPT. We just talked about GA4, the update with Google Analytics. So there were some timely things that we tried to jump on, but for the most part, we just roll with it. What do you think?
Okay, hold on. Let me get my air over here. Thank you for the compliments. Now, the other part of this is working with a partner. I wasn't sure how that was going to go because I'm very flighty and I'm going to do this right now, but maybe I'll not do it the same time tomorrow or whatever. You know what I mean? So when you're working alone in your business, it takes a little bit of pre-planning because you're working with someone else and you're working with two different schedules or whatnot. But working with Bee's been amazing because I can send her an idea and say, hey, I just got this idea, because ideas come and then they go. So as soon as they come, I shoot it to Bee and I'm like, hey, I've got this idea, and she'll either add it to the list or massage it a little bit and figure out where it might fit somewhere else. But that's the beauty of a podcast and kind of like a weekly content thing, is that it's not so overwhelming that we can't record it every week. Like today, we happen to be recording 2 episodes, but it's a little bit more stressful when you're recording the week that it's going to come out. We've done that before, and that's not fun.
No.
But we try to keep a list of ideas going. So it's like maybe we don't know exactly like a format for a monthly theme or a quarterly theme or anything like that, but we have an idea of some topics that we'd like to cover. And then we run into somebody and it's, oh my gosh, this person would be perfect. Like when you said you wanted to start a podcast, my first thought was, you should come on the podcast so we could talk about it. And I think it's really great, Bee said, because it's a chance to showcase other business owners, other people that we've met that really have amazing ideas or things to share or whatever. So that's been our approach to it. And we still have a long list of ideas.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't yet put into podcast form.
Yeah. I just want to add to like subtle, not so subtle plug. If you have a question, if you're listening, I'm talking to you, if you have a topic, a question, an idea, anything, please let us know. You can for sure find us on Instagram, and we have our links and stuff in the show notes. Also, if you have learned anything from listening to the show, I'm going to make another subtle plug to please leave a review. That really helps inform our next steps. And Whitney, this is something that we haven't been the best at with asking for reviews, but that definitely helps us make really smart next choices that the listeners will enjoy.
We are making this podcast for not only to document our own journeys and to just share the conversations that Bee and I've had together. That was the whole point. We were like, we were having some amazing conversations and it felt good to be able to share it with someone. So that was our number one goal, was to be able to share these conversations with people and invite them to come in and have the conversation as well. So that loneliness of entrepreneurship is eased a little bit. What I don't care about is how people feel like I talk or anything like
we're not about that.
Yeah, not about that life.
You can keep that to yourself.
Yeah. And Bee said it does help us reach more people. But my focus is not the reviews. My focus is just on sharing ideas and sharing information. And so I know that can be scary when you're putting yourself out there and then now people get to have an opinion about it. So you are going to have to think about, how do I want to handle that? But for me personally, I'm like, you know what? I'm not looking at those reviews, which is very weird because as an Etsy seller and a Shopify seller, we live and die by our reviews.
I'm looking at it from like my SEO and copywriting perspective of, oh, cool. What can we pull out? What could we use? And if we ever do get smart with marketing materials, what can we use? But yeah, that's an interesting perspective. And I hadn't thought about that. And it can be scary. But at the same time, like you said, we were just like, hey, we're having some great conversations. Let's record it and put it out on the internet. And so reviews haven't really been a thing. And that's probably why we don't talk about them or ask for them very often.
Yeah. And we're fortunate. Like we get a lot of like DMs and conversations. And how many times have you and I talked, Whitney, about something you said that you heard on the podcast? And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was great. That's all the positive reinforcement that I need.
And that people like it. We weren't even sure.
Yeah.
I think that like for me, I don't enjoy social media as much. It's difficult I don't use it personally. So it's difficult to continue to show up there and feel like I'm providing value, I feel like it's easier to do that, or might be for me, in a podcast, that you can really have a conversation and you're not limited to 90 seconds, or also just being able to communicate with other people at the same time and not just you and your phone kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I first realized this with Clubhouse. It's different when somebody's posting a static graphic or something on social media. They may come across as an expert and they may just be parroting something that they've seen somebody else post. But the minute you hear them start talking about the thing, that's when you can really start to understand and make an informed decision about whether or not you can trust that person or if they know what they're talking about, because you can't fake it with like video and recording, like audio like this. You just can't fake it if you don't have the knowledge. And B and I have always been of the mindset, like, look, if we don't know, we're going to say we don't know, and then we're going to go find the answer. But I think that podcasting it is an excellent way to build authority, because people, and then also build relationships, because people feel like they know you, they hear your voice, you're familiar to them. And so you're that much more likely for them to either do business with you, or like you were talking about, just building up other business owners and building a network of like-minded people, because they have a chance to get to know you.
And even like Crystal's dad, apparently we're besties, and I've
Yeah.
never met him. I haven't
Hey,
even
Dad.
said hi. Hi. But that's kind of cool, right? There's things that I think we anticipated we would enjoy and that we would get to do. But I think there were also a lot of things where it's been like a happy benefit that we didn't plan for, didn't think of.
I think I don't know, that's why I'm here, because you do provide so much value. And then the little snippets on Instagram or whatever, it's, oh, I missed it today, I didn't listen yet. And then it reminds me, go back and listen to the podcast. I need to hear this today or whatever. So
That's a great point, because I had just messaged Crystal, our messaging or our marketing plan. We really haven't done the best with talking about it on social media. I think we're both pretty good most of the time with talking about it on Instagram stories, but truly we have done like next to no marketing. It's been word of mouth. It's been the podcast episodes, the podcast title, everything is very searchable. We should come back and talk about that. But email, like we write emails, and that's been it. So also, if for you, Whitney, or anyone listening, you don't have to have this big, robust marketing plan. Is that good? Totally. Is there still merit to it? Absolutely. But again, don't let that hold you back. Do, one thing that maybe feels good to you. But also, this even goes back to when we came up with the title for our podcast. We wanted it to get found, because guess what? We're always thinking about keywords. We're always thinking about what are our people looking for. And that's the beauty and the brilliance of SEO. So I did a little bit of keyword research. I did a little bit of market research. What do you guys want to know? What are you interested in? And I think I came to Crystal with, 5 or 8 or 10 ideas, and we picked the Simple and Smart SEO show. That has been huge. Crystal writes the show notes. I think that has been really huge for getting us found as well. And then also, and I don't know what conversations you guys have had about this, but I'll get messages from people and they're like, oh, I searched blah, blah, blah. Like I know one person last week was like, I searched SEO visibility and your podcast came up. I'm like, sweet, writing that down.
Yeah. So that reminds me of another like tactical thing. You have to have a host for your podcast so that your podcast has somewhere to go and then can be searchable and be found. We use Buzzsprout.
Love them.
What happens with Buzzsprout, and probably very similar to other podcast hosting networks, is you fill out your show information, all that type of stuff. And then each time you have an episode, you upload that edited episode into Buzzsprout. And then it gives you an opportunity to type in the title and then the show notes. And then you get to choose when you want it to go live. You can schedule it, or you can let it immediately go live. It's very similar like to a blog post, because after you write the blog post, you get to choose what day it's going to be published. So it's very similar to that. And then there's opportunity for you to add in like keywords at the bottom. Once you upload the podcast and save it, there'll be an opportunity to upload your transcript. And this was something that we went back and forth about, because we were like, oh, I didn't want to go through the transcript and edit it every single time, because that is very time consuming. But it's still helpful for people, even if like from a disability perspective, these couple of people said it's better to have a transcript that's not perfect than no transcript at all. We went ahead and have been uploading the transcript, and we put, look, this is machine generated. It hasn't been edited for errors, just to manage the expectation of that transcript.
Hmm.
So our initial start was, hey, let's put a lot of keywords in the show notes and the show description. But I think having the transcript also helps, because if you'll notice, whenever you search in like Apple Podcasts, if you search for a particular keyword, a lot of times the reason why it finds a podcast is because that word showed up in the transcript. And then the other thing that Buzzsprout will walk you through is how to send your podcast out to all of the podcast players. So in one click, they'll give you what's called an RSS feed. They'll say, okay, if you want to be indexed on Apple Podcasts, click here, and they'll walk you through the instructions on how to submit. For most podcasts, there's just one button that you have to click and it will send it out to everybody. But again, those things, that's the most technical, I think, of the process. And within that ecosystem of Buzzsprout, their platform, they take care of it. So pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. Keeping it simple and easy, especially starting out, I think is, well, it's definitely key for me, but I can see how
Mhm.
it can be intimidating. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you're sharing them on YouTube though, also, right? Have you
Mhm.
always done that? Like from the beginning or?
Our YouTube situation isn't very consistent. It's not consistent because first I was sharing it to my personal, like Crystal Waddell YouTube channel, because we didn't have a simple and smart SEO channel. And then it was like one day we thought we should have a YouTube channel for the show. But again, being solopreneurs and each having our own business or businesses, it's a lot to manage.
Yeah.
So there was what's that Headliner app?
Headliner app.
Yeah. So Headliner app is something that B uses. What I was using it for was to automatically send the episode in text form. So what it does is it makes a kinetic text video that is just captions rolling across the screen or whatnot, and it automatically posts to the channel. So that's just like a one-click integration where it's, do you want to upload this to YouTube? And yeah, I do. What's your YouTube channel? Here's your YouTube channel. And then it does it automatically. But
Yeah.
since we switched to the simple and smart SEO, actually having the YouTube channel, I haven't clicked that button. So thank you for the reminder. I need to go back and do that.
Yeah. And that's in place of, we are recording this. We do have the video. All of our guests are like, is the video going to go live? And we're like, maybe, possibly one day if we ever, like Crystal said, I mean, we both have two businesses. She
Yeah.
has a family. I have stuff going on. There's a lot. And that's been part of it too, is like figuring out, like managing our capacity. Before I go down that road, Headliner app, I actually heard from, shout out to Erin Alula, because I was like, how do I make these things for our podcast guests? So that's one of the things that I tackle, is actually getting I just call them assets. I saw that one time when I was a podcast guest and someone's like, here's your assets. And I was like, cool, that sounds really smart. I'm just going to use that. So I give them this kind of canned email template. I swap out a few key elements with each one, but it's like an email that they could then take and send to their audience. It's super short, to the point, and they can always take it and make it way better. But sometimes there's just days where we don't have the bandwidth to make things. And so it's just, here, pop this in. It's like easy. But they get that email swipe copy. They get an audiogram, so a sound bite for Pinterest. They get a sound bite for Instagram. They get a static pin for Pinterest, and they get a static image for Instagram. And that's where Headliner app was super helpful, because I go in, I create the thing once. It's actually been really easy with Crystal finding those like beginning snippets. A lot of times I'll just go with that. I might make a note when we're recording. I'm like, oh, I really want to pull this thing. But a lot of times having that thing at the beginning, and I haven't actually shared that with you. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
And a lot of times those clips are anywhere from 15 to 30 seconds, I think. And it's just like that lead in that piques curiosity. So someone wants to actually go find the link and listen. But yeah, that's been incredibly helpful. I can't think of anything else with that, but yeah.
And I was just going to say, you'll have access to that as a podcast guest. B took this to another level, okay? Because I'll be honest with you. If it was me, I'd be like, are you available at 9:00 on this day? Yeah, cool. Okay, here's a Zoom invite. You know what I mean? But B took it like next level, because there's information that you need if you're going to have a podcast guest. And B recognized that very early. So you need the person's name, some background information, a little bit about their business, just like their links, that type of thing. So it's good to have some kind of intake form. And we use HoneyBook for that. And B, she handles like the front side and like the onboarding and that type of thing. If you're just doing this on your own, or just with a partner, it might not be as necessary. But if you're going to have guests, at some point, you're going to want to automate some of that process so that you get everything
Yes,
that
you
you
are.
need without having to go back and forth with a podcast guest.
Okay. Now,
And
when
once-
I was filling out the forms, I took screenshots of every single
I was going to say, let
one.
us know if you need anything, because that was, for me, that's what I did. Once we were like, oh, we're going to do this thing, I was like, oh, what processes have I gone through? So I went back to the shows that I had been on and asked Crystal, and we've built the plane as we're flying it and pulling people on board. So it's an ever evolving thing. And one thing I wanted to mention is that, like, the systems that we have, the processes that we have, we're still figuring those out. I think we finally got to a point where, again, like Crystal said, I love Google Docs, Google Drive. I live over there with my client work. So it was a seamless transition for me. But figuring out, our brains work slightly differently. We have different strengths. We have different components that we're like responsible for when it comes to the podcast. So it's like, what do you need to make you successful, Crystal? And what do I need to make me successful, Brittany? And then how do we then bring the guests on board and make sure that we're hitting all of the things out of the park for the listener? So it can feel overwhelming if you sit and think about it, but just start, and then you'll figure out the things that you need to have in place too.
Yeah. And we've went back and forth with people like, how do you organize all of this information? And there's tools out there. There's Notion, and Notion's really cool. It's fun to set up a spreadsheet or whatever. You could do an Excel spreadsheet that has like the date of the episode, the guest, and then the topic, and then maybe a link to the actual audio or video or whatever. But one thing we found was that just using Google Docs and just putting everything in a Google Doc was the easiest for us. Once I figured out that there was like a separate Google account, because I'm like getting these shared documents.
That was on me.
No, but
because I was sending her like one thing at a time, and she was seeing these individual things, not realizing there was a whole ecosystem in a Google Drive. So that was absolutely like all on me. And Crystal was like, what? This thing exists? This is
I was like, this is amazing. She built this like document city, and I didn't even know that it was on the maps, but she did an amazing job with that. But just using Google Drive has been very easy for us. Just have a folder for,
and it's free.
Guest. Yeah. Yeah. So no need to get fancy unless you want to, unless you're comfortable with one of those other product management systems. But at the end of the day, Google Docs was just the easiest for us.
What about like your intro and music? And
oh, wow. Taking us way back. Yeah.
Hold on. I got to do research. Please hold.
B wrote our intro, and we're actually going to rewrite it because our job descriptions have changed a little bit since then. And we figured out a little bit more about what we want to do. But we recorded it, I think, in Zoom. And B went to, what was the website that you got the music from?
I just looked it up. It's called Storyblocks. Yeah. You can listen. They have a whole bunch of things, but we went there specifically for the audio, for the music. And I think I poked around on it for free. And you can download the snippets. Like, it's not the whole song, but you can download a snippet. And then I think what we did, this is way back. It hasn't even been a year. What is wrong with our brains? But I think I put it in a folder and I said, hey, Crystal, will you go listen to these? It might have been 10. We narrowed that down to 5. And then in trying to build anticipation, we asked our Instagram audiences, like, okay, which one do you like? Vote. And both of our audiences voted. And that is the song that's on there now.
Huh.
Yeah. So we did go back and pay for, I think we paid for 3, because you pay for, I want to say it's like $10 a month, or it was $10 a month, but who knows, with inflation, it might be like $50 a month. I have no idea. But you get 3 downloads of the audio, the MP3s or whatever. So we did go with our top 3 just in case we ever wanted to switch it up. But yeah, I'm excited to re-record it.
Yeah. I don't know how you guys put all that together with, your other businesses and just all of the back end stuff.
I think like B said, it's like we were building the plane as we were flying it. And then it just figured itself out because people were interested in what we were talking about. And I think everybody just had an interest in that. And then they wanted to help us build it.
Yeah, we've had some great people
for sure.
Help us.
If you were to start over today, is there anything that you'd do differently?
I don't think so.
We talked a little bit about post-production. One thing that I would do is I would spend a little bit more time kind of researching post-production opportunities, but I want to give you three things that I use because I may not be using these the most efficiently. So I do want to say that, okay? The first one that I wish I would have known about sooner is something called Descript. Descript. And I attended a webinar just a couple months ago. You drag the audio file into Descript and it will transcribe it automatically. It'll define speakers. So let's say you have 3 different speakers. It'll say, hey, we detected 3 different speakers. You can then provide the labels, like it'll play a clip of one of the speakers and you can put, oh, this was Whitney, this is Crystal, this is Brittany. And then it fills it in as best as it can through the whole transcript. So even though we're not editing the transcript, it already has provided so much more helpful information than we had in the earlier episodes because it also does timestamps. It's real easy to find things in there. And then you can delete all of the ums and ahs. So if you have any of those types of tendencies, you can edit those out. And then it has something called studio sound. So when we were talking about that post-production, if you've got sound quality issues, or let's say all 3 of our sound probably is a little bit different from one to the other, studio sound kind of equalizes that, or whatever the word is. And so everything's just a little bit more smooth and cohesive and just sounds a little bit more professional. So once you do that, then you can export your transcript and have a transcript that you can just copy and paste into Buzzsprout. And then you can export your audio file and now it's ready to upload to Buzzsprout. Now, remember I said that I do things a little bit slower and this may not be the most efficient because Leah told us you could make a template. So I'm pretty sure that I could add in our intro and our outro to Descript and then just do it all in Descript, but I don't know how to do that yet and I haven't taken the time to learn. So what I then do is I do it in GarageBand on my Mac because I do have in GarageBand, I have the intro and the outro. So I'll just pull in the audio of that podcast episode and just adjust the front to go in front of that episode, put the intro in front of that episode, and then align the exit at the back of the episode. Then I'll export it again. So that could be it. You could upload to Buzzsprout. But then sometimes I do one more thing because this is how I learned to smooth the audio originally. There's another website called Auphonic, and it's AUPHONIC. And Descript is like $30 a month, I think, for the pro plan that I have. But Auphonic is free for up to 2 hours a month. But what you can do is you can upload that audio into Auphonic, then flattens out the audio again and just makes it even better. I feel like our audio, the last few episodes, has just been fire.
It's been amazing. I don't know any of this stuff. So like I said, if Crystal wasn't here, I don't know, it would probably just sound like however we're recording it right now.
Yeah. And that's fine. But I think it's fun to just see how pretty I can make the audio.
Every perfectionist loves it. Yeah, it's great.
So that's how I put it all together. Because the reason why I put it through Auphonic at the end is because I took it out of Descript and put it in GarageBand. And so the beginning intro and the exit music might be at a different level. And so I want all of it to be smooth from the intro to the episode through the exit to the end. And so that's why I do that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I never knew any of this stuff. Thanks for asking, Whitney.
Yeah.
For sharing. Wow.
Yeah. But again, it doesn't have to be like that. And there's some times I'm sure we both wanted to cry a little bit just because we've been busy and it's one more thing. But that's something else to consider is like, how often do you want to publish? Right. Nobody said you have to do it once a week.
Yeah. Even with ours, I think that there was a week where I was like, I don't have the bandwidth. And Chris was like, I don't either. So we just went on to the next week.
Yeah.
And you have to you really need to honor that because your listeners, I'm sure you didn't even notice, right? Like you just have to listen to yourself and figure out what you need. And especially if you have a co-host too, what do they need? And that's something that I feel like we're both really good about. I try to check in with Crystal. She checks in with me. And we've been friends since 2018. So we know a little bit more about each other. I think something's going on here.
Yeah.
You sure you're okay? Yeah.
Wow. Once again, this has just been invaluable. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm excited to get started. A little nervous, but I've got lots of amazing notes and I don't know. Thank you.
We had Leah Bryant on the podcast and she was talking about SEO for podcasts. And she has a really great freebie, like how to get started with a podcast, like a little checklist or whatever. So we'll link that here. It's accessible on her website and she's the podcast guru. So she breaks it down really in just like that very simple way, like this is how you get started. So that's another great resource.
Yeah. And I was going to mention that I had someone reach out and say, what is it like to co-host a podcast? Like, I'm considering doing this. So I wrote a blog. So I'm going to make sure that we have that in the show notes as well. But yeah, we try to be open book about everything, honest. And I'm glad that you were on so we could revisit this. This is really cool.
We did do a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Check us out.
No, it's incredible. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The greatest news, though, is now you don't have to feel alone as you go through it. You've got a couple people you can check in with on the way.
Yeah.
And we'll be happy to talk through any roadblocks you hit.
No, I'll be sending you messages on Voxer or DM or whatever, because you're amazing. And this is my first podcast. So lots of excitement. Thank you.
You did great.
Where can people find you?
You can find me at madlywish.com, madlywish on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, all the things. And I'll be there.
Yay. Thanks for being here. This was really fun.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. You guys are just giving so much out to small businesses. And I appreciate you.
We appreciate you.
Love Fest.
Woo! Love Fest by the Heart Eyes. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today.
If you like this info, subscribe before you go, so you never miss out on something related to SEO.
See you next time. Hey guys, this is Crystal, one of your co-hosts from the Simple and Smart SEO Show podcast. If you're looking for a unique, handcrafted way to spruce up your home or office, then collagenwood.com is the perfect place for you. We are a small, woman-owned business that offers a range of beautiful wooden signs for your home or office. Our talented team of artists will work with you to create a sign that perfectly suits your needs. So why wait? Use promo code SIMPLE10 to save 10%. Visit collagenwood.com today. Save 10% with promo code SIMPLE10. That's collagenwood.com.